I'm Frank Vaughn. It's May 15th, 2025, and I have to admit the wildfires burning seemingly all around us have been a bit of a distraction of late. However, this farcical, fraudulent Westminster system that we live under and this broken, corrupted federation just keeps slapping us in the face. So let's explore that a little further so that we can glean what it is I think the next 6 months is going to look like. First things first, the fake executive orders apparently are here to stay.
Canadians sent a clear message that they need to see improvements in their affordability. We promised a middle-class tax cut leading to over $800 of savings for two-income households. We're acting today on that so that by July 1st, as promised, that middle-class tax cut that will reduce taxes for the 22 million Canadians who pay federal income taxes, that tax cut will take into effect. We're acting on affordability as we look to build out this economy. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut.
There's nothing real here. This is theater. People need to understand it. The nice folder, I don't know who's paying for those. Obviously, it's the taxpayer. But I don't know where they come from. I don't know what office they come out of. Or is it an attempt to look like a Governor General's order in council? It's of no force and effect. This is theater. The country is being run theatrically. Now, before we get into what we can expect of the upcoming parliamentary session, if we can even call it that, we're going to agree with and rebut this, what I call a false dichotomy at the same time. Alberta Conservatives who support independence have to resolve the following inconsistency in their political thought. A, Alberta independence is the only way. B, Pierre and the Conservative Party can save us. What's it going to be? Well, for one thing, Pierre and the Conservative Party can't save us. Pierre won't even call out the clear, fraudulent nature of this federation as it's ongoing right now, and we're going to look at that next. But you can walk and chew gum at the same time. In the lead up to the last election, we had a choice. We could either participate in the election by voting for a candidate on the ballot, or we could reject our ballots, or we could stay home. The real vehicle for change, as I've said for years now, is the provincial governments and lobbying the provincial governments to reclaim autonomy for the provinces, or even sovereignty if we want to go that far. And that is still the principal pursuit. It was this way before Trudeau was out of office. I've been talking about this for a long time. But when a federal election comes along, if you feel like participating, if you feel like voting for a party that might actually tap the brakes on the agenda as it's being implemented, might do criminal justice reform that actually puts criminals in jail, might repeal the orders in council when it comes to legal gun owners. There was a lot on the table, a lot of reasons to consider a conservative vote. But the idea that voting for a conservative government was going to fix everything, as far as I'm concerned, in my comment section and in the work that I've been doing, I never presented that as the option that was going to save the day. It was just something to do. And I don't think a lot of the Conservative Party base, at least that I engage with, actually believed that Poilievre was going to be able to institute a revolution. First off, there doesn't seem to be a lot of will for the revolution. And second of all, there's an oppositional Senate, there's an oppositional judiciary, there were all these things. I felt that a conservative government was the most useful kind of government that we could have because the mainstream right deserved their chance, and no matter how it proceeded, it would expose the system for what it is. But back to Mark Carney, just for a moment, he is exposing the system. Once they had the rubber stamp, the public relations approval of an electoral success, which is what they got out of the last election, I got to be honest, I sort of expected them to go back to the optics of quote-unquote democracy here in Canada. But instead, they're not even doing that. They're actually, at this point, I think they believe that the Canadian public is so docile that it doesn't matter. They don't even have to try anymore. They don't even have to pretend that Parliament is relevant. And we're going to get into that next. But let's just finish off with Pierre for a minute. Pierre says, in 2 days, Mark Carney appoints a housing minister who nearly tripled housing costs as Vancouver mayor. Very true. It's, and I'll just finish the tweet first. Mark Carney announces he will not introduce any budget this year. It's incredible, right? The earliest we might see a budget is in the fall. So we're going to operate without one. What does that mean? We'll get into that next. Mark Carney's Minister Guilbeault says no to any new pipelines. In the last 2 days, look a lot like the last 10 years. It's so safe zone. It's so safe zone, and it doesn't actually get to the core of the problem. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he does not support the idea of Alberta separating from Canada. I'm against separation. I'm a born and raised Albertan. I love Canada. I think we need to unite this country. You want your federal political leaders to sound like this. Otherwise, you've got another Bloc Québécois on your hands. Now, maybe there needs to be a Bloc Albertois. I don't want to take credit for that. Someone else came up with that in the comments section, and I laughed way too hard at it. And maybe it's worth creating a Bloc Albertois or a Bloc Western Canada. I'm fine with that. The Conservative Party of Canada is not that option. They are a federalist party. I would expect their leader to say this. It's tone deaf. I don't know why Pierre Poilievre fears talking about it's not just the cabinet appointments. It's not just the contradictions that between what Mark Carney says and what his ministers say. It's not just the contradictions, which Poilievre never even really talked about. Between what he says in the book Values and what he said on the campaign trail, he touched on it a little bit, but it was so nice. It was so safe. At this point, we need to set aside the Conservative Party of Canada. We need to set aside Pierre Poilievre, and we need to focus on the provinces. Now, unfortunately, if you live in Ontario or you live in Quebec, good luck to you. You're kind of on your own, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. The provinces are on their own. The federal government has abdicated its duty. Now, I'm going to allow myself to don the tinfoil hat a little bit. Mark Carney sends a signal when he wears his Order of Canada pin rather than a Canadian flag pin. He's telling us something. When he sits behind a desk and he signs a fake executive order, mimicking Donald Trump, he's telling us something. When on the campaign trail, it's all elbows up in combat with the United States and crisis, but he takes one flight down to Washington, he glad hands with Donald Trump, and then he comes back, all friendly, all good relations, the trade war, even though the media mentions it still as an ongoing concern, it's actually paused. He's telling us something. The good news is that Parliament's only going to sit for 15 days. It's such a tragedy, but it is good news in a way because the legislative agenda, the ability to change laws or pass new laws, goes through Parliament. Now, the Order in councils can do a lot. They can seize any and all of your private property and turn it into prohibited property at the whim of government without Parliament sitting. Who knows how far they can take the Order in council power that Justin Trudeau has pioneered. The Westminster system that we live under required a large degree of honor. When it came to Senate vacancies, when it came to judicial appointments, our politicians needed to behave with honor. Justin Trudeau rejected that. He stacked the Senate, he stacked the judiciary, and through this prorogation thing, he created a whole new way to govern, which Mark Carney is telling us he's going to capitalize on. So, the legislative agenda of the Liberal Party remains unknown. We're not even going to get a budget. What we're going to get is plenty of spending through the Governor General's office, through the King's representative, at the behest of the Prime Minister and his cabinet, which, again, I don't know why I have to keep repeating this. I got called retarded, I think a half dozen times yesterday by one person because I highlighted that Parliament is not government. Cabinet is government. Parliament is not government. You don't require Parliament to govern in this country. You don't require Parliament for things to just carry on, for the status quo to continue forward through time. I don't even know why I have to explain it at this point, but I guess I still do. At any rate, the censorship bills, all the other bad bills, the pandemic treaty bill, all those things that died when Parliament was prorogued are very unlikely to get resurrected in the next 3 weeks. They're certainly not going to. I think it is completely impossible for any new legislation to pass and achieve royal assent before the fall. Because Parliament, if you don't know this, is only set to sit from the 26th until about mid-June, and then they're going to break and be gone until September 15th. God knows, they could go for even longer. You would think that if we were in the middle of a crisis, that if affordability was a real concern, that if Donald Trump and the trade war were actual pressing issues, that Parliament would sit and they would have a legislative agenda. They would at least have a budget, but they're not doing any of that. They're going to take several months off. So the sad part is the good news that I was trying to convey when I opened up this bit of a spiel is that nothing's going to happen. There's going to be no legislation passed. The status quo is going to tick on, and our government, the good news is the government will be not doing anything. They'll just be taking a bunch of time off. That's the good news, that tens of millions of dollars in wages and expenses will be paid out to your parliamentarians, and they are going to get nothing done, just like the last 9 months. They're going to get nothing done. And that's good news. And of course, this good news is tragic. Our parliamentarians won't be doing anything. Now, the government, the ministers, the cabinet that was just appointed and with a signature approved by the Governor General, I'm sure they'll be very busy behind the scenes. But the media won't be chasing them around asking questions about what they're up to during the summer recess. We'll just be going along tickety-boo without any representation in Parliament, and it is just tragic. Now, what is Mark here to do? He's going to rule by fiat. He's going to rule through orders in council. We talked about this on this channel ad nauseum, for months, and this isn't like a victory lap. It's tragic. It's absolutely tragic that we could even have these conversations and then see it manifesting. That you can predict this future and have it manifest in front of you. It's not like there's no sense of victory here. It's crippling, crushing loss. Like even the veneer of what Canada was supposed to be has just been dropped, and they don't even care anymore. They're not even pretending. The crisis is over. Everybody's going home. Fake executive orders now rule. Him signing documents that are of no force and effect. Nobody even knows what those pieces of paper mean. They're certainly not orders in council, but it's an indicator of what's coming now. What's Carney going to be up to? Going back to 2018, Enbridge to sell natural gas business to Brookfield for $4.3 billion now. Carney loves energy. He has no problem investing in it because it makes money. He says he wants a new pipeline. His own minister says there is no pipeline. Peak oil is around the corner, and that ideology, that nut bar ideology of climate change is still in control. The ideology that was espoused in Mark's book, Values. Nobody knows what these clowns are going to do outside of, I think, looting the Canada Pension Plan. And so here's Brookfield again. We've highlighted on this channel how Brookfield has used the Canada Pension Plan like a private piggy bank. Whenever they've got a distressed asset they want to offload, they sell it to the CPP. So you, as a mandatory Canada Pension Plan contributor, you have no choice. It's a tax. It's been ruled a tax by our courts in spite of the fact that so many people online from the left still insist it's not a tax. It's just forced savings. It's been ruled a tax. In May, this is an older article, a $1.75 billion agreement with the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board to sell a 49% stake in most of its wind and solar power assets. Really, there's nothing more to get into here that we haven't gotten into in the past. And I'm sorry if this is a bit of a cluster mug. The only thing I'm trying to highlight here is the relationship that goes back years between Brookfield, Mark Carney, the central bankers, the financiers, the insurance companies, and the Canada Pension Plan. It's my heartfelt concern and belief that Mark Carney is here to loot Canada. He's not going to strengthen anything. He's going to cripple it, carve it up, and make sure that him and his friends make lots of money in the offing. Parliament has been reduced to window dressing. They haven't sat. They're going to sit for a few weeks. They're not going to be able to advance any legislation, even if they've introduced some bills and they pass through first, second, and third reading. They got to go to the Senate. There's a whole process. And by the time any of that process is taken care of, they'll be back on recess. So nothing's going to happen. They're not even going to pass a budget. And there are people in this country who think that this is how it's supposed to be, that this is the way that government should function. What little power the citizen of Canada has been further reduced and eroded already by this farcical government and this farcical process. We got Elections Canada flipping seats by 1 vote, admitting they screwed up, but the results are final and you just got to deal with it. My once unshakable faith in Canadian elections has been shaken. There's no way to know how bad it is. There's no way to know how much fraud there is. There's no way to know how many non-citizens are voting because we're not tracking any of that. We're not even asking the questions. The opposition party, under Pierre Poilievre, they're not asking those questions. They're not saying anything about it. He's just reaffirming his dedication to the Federation, this broken, corrupted chunk of terrible Federation. Our only hope is that Premier Smith and Premier Moe represent their constituents. And why do I only say those two premiers? Because the other premiers don't care. Coast to coast, no one else is making any noise about the unjust federal government that is being imposed on us right now. And it is a government, the government of the cabinet, the government of Mark Carney, not your parliamentarians, not the people you elect, but the government that is imposed upon you. There's only two premiers making noise. So you come back to the point. If you got a problem and you're living somewhere else in the country and you share the ideals, Western ideals, you might want to vote with your feet. You're probably past that time now anyway. Start a new life. Just leave all your baggage at the door. Leave the liberal politics, leave the socialism, leave all that stuff at the door. If you're going to come like a sponge. Come to learn. Come to figure out the culture and become part of it. Don't come here to change it. Come here to make sure that it hangs on. Because at this point, the only hope for the citizen are these two humble provinces in Western Canada. I hope the governments keep waking up because it's not just the nation state or the Federation that's facing an existential crisis because of Mark Carney. It's the very existence of the citizen as individuals with any semblance of sovereignty. Now back to the whole tinfoil hat thing. Donald Trump is very happy. China seems mollified. All the global actors and players, the big power people, are satisfied that Carney is at the helm in Canada. You get the feeling that we're just being divided up like a pie. And we're going to go through a multi-year process of this dividing up. And in that time, the only people who are going to suffer are the Canadian people who aren't going to be helped by any of it. All of this virtue signaling about saving a dual income family $800 on their personal income taxes. Woo. What does $800 buy anybody anymore? It certainly doesn't pay your rent in most places across this country. It doesn't do anything about inflation. It doesn't do anything about the fact that by the signature of the Governor General, the Carney government through the summer is going to just keep spending your money without any oversight and adding to the national debt, which only further erodes purchasing power of the dollars in your pocket. The pain, I think, is just beginning. I think the most important thing for people to understand, particularly any liberal who happens to watch this, is that you were whipped up into a fervor to stop Pierre Poilievre because he was Trump north. And what you got immediately after that fervor was a hurry up and wait attitude by the government that you just elected. The crisis is gone. Elbows up is gone. And now Trump is our partner. Now Trump is a visionary president. If Polyev had done any of those things, you would have lost your mind because you were programmed to lose your mind. But because it's Carney, it's wisdom. I think you need some introspection. And I'm just going to read some tweets to finish because sometimes writing is better. Carney does not need Parliament to govern, but he appreciates the 43% of the voting public who legitimize this farce. What happened to urgency and elbows up? Does the red voter introspect? We have an imported economic hitman managing and a governor general signing off. It's like Canada is under management. For who? Is it many parties at the table? It almost feels like arbitration. And I can't put details on that. I can't further quantify it. It's just a feeling. Again, let me just have my tinfoil hat. It feels like we are under arbitration. I've been saying some things for a long time, but a couple bear repetition. Parliament is not the government. The government of the Prime Minister can rule through the Governor General's signature alone indefinitely. The election was a PR campaign. They didn't need the election, but they wanted it, and they figured they could win, so they called it, and they got their mandate. So now, in the minds of the public, what they're going to do by executive fiat is justified. We don't even have a legal vehicle for executive fiat other than the orders and councils and the Governor General. And I say that, and it just goes back to him signing the fake documents, the executive orders. It's like we're being programmed to accept government by fiat through the Governor General's office, just dispensing with Parliament. And as I highlighted the other day, why not? The entire system, the entire bureaucracy functions just fine without Parliament sitting. Nothing changes without them. What's the point? We might as well just have a dictator, because we virtually do. You don't have any property rights. Your charter rights can be suspended at a whim. Why even bother with legislation when you can just sign orders in council? Banning behaviors, banning property, barring people from, we don't even need a legislative process. It feels like that's what they're showing us. The fake executive order thing, Canada as we thought it functioned, is gone. It was always this way under the hood, but until the last 10 years, we did a better job hiding it. Yeah, there was a degree of honor among parliamentarians that Justin Trudeau ended. Now the system, which was always riggable, I think we have to understand this. The system could always be rigged by design. It's the nature of the system. It's the nature of the federation. But politicians always hesitated to rig the entire game until Justin Trudeau, and in particular, the last year he was in office, through orders in council, just brought to the surface an entire new way of governing, and they're getting away with it. The people aren't upset about it. There's no freedom convoy assembling against orders in council. I would argue most Canadians who are even opposed to the Trudeau government aren't as fired up about this as they should be. One last thing. Brampton has more representation in the Carney cabinet than all of Alberta and Saskatchewan combined. Cabinet is government. The Governor General is government, not Parliament. While Polyev signals his federalism, the federal system could hardly suck more. Polyev, in my mind, is irrelevant now. He ain't helping anybody. He's going to parachute himself into Alberta, and he's going to get elected. And the sad part is, they're probably going to lose a significant percentage of their support in that riding. We'll find out how much. I think Polyev wins easy. But how many percentage points less support is he going to get, or how low will turnout be? Because many people in that riding don't appreciate somebody being parachuted in, as conservative and deep blue as they are. But I still say that Polyev is the best choice for the Conservative Party of Canada. what is the Conservative Party of Canada going to do for any of us right now? There's no vehicle for them to even speak. There's no parliament in session. They're going to have 3 weeks and then the whole summer's going to be off. And Poilievre is, what time he gets in front of the camera, he's rededicating himself to this federation that produced this outcome. Canada, as it's designed, Canada, the system, Canada, the state, sucks. It's terrible. It needs to either be redrawn or dispensed with, because this is horrendous. And if you're okay with this, if you're among the millions in Ontario that think that this is a completely normal outcome, or among the millions in Quebec who voted for this willingly, fine, you can keep it. But right now is the time for Western Canada to say that we've had enough. I'm Frank Vaughan. I'll see you in the next one.